This is, I think, the fourth lesson, SketchUp modeling 24 School Street. So I went to the site yesterday and the day before yesterday and took some photographs that are significant. View slideshow. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. The main thing that I wanted to learn was the difference between the old space and the new, which is explained by these 9 risers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each of them is 6 inches. 9 times 6 is 54 inches. And we have this monumental stair, which is easily 10 or 12 feet wide. And I think one thing we can trust about the drawing is that the length of this tread. Typically, a stair tread, a rule of thumb is that 2 times the tread plus 2 times the riser plus the length of the tread is roughly 25. If this riser is 6 inches, we're left with 12 or 13 inches at least for the tread, and I think we discovered it was 14 in the drawing. So we have to draw between level 1, the new building, and level 1 and the old part. 9 times 6, 50. We have a 54-inch difference. Notice that some of these columns are placed at an angle to the grid line. Trying to get some views of the structure. And then there's the massive load-bearing wall in the center of the new space, on which these columns, this radial array of columns sit. Okay, let's start SketchUp. I think it'll remember the last drawing I opened. Don't know. It doesn't have the history of less, so we'll have to navigate over to it. File open. These are all in my handouts, as you know. got the letter T mapped to my handout drive. Senior Studio site. There are my SketchUp lessons. Let's see, the last one was, it was up to lesson 5. Okay, so we're going to save this as lesson 6, so let's open this file. Okay, so let's cut a section through lengthwise to understand what's the differences between that and that. Now, let's cheat for a second. Because this is a group, it's on its own layer, I can go into Window Component Attributes, and I did assign a Z position for that. It's 53 inches. Same with the floor level, the old floor level, and if I add an attribute for it, if I add the Z position of it, adding an attribute reports on the current value of that attribute. So the Z position is actually 0, right? Z position of this, 53 inches, should be 54. Is that right? 9 times 6. Yeah, 54 inches. So if I cut a section through let me flip this along the green axis so that we're orthogonal or perpendicular to the green axis. So I'm going to move the section plane into the model somewhere where I can see the difference between the two floors. So we'll do it at about there. Everybody understands what I'm doing, I hope, right? I can select a section plane. It's currently telling me that yes, that's the active cut. I can align the view to it, meaning now I'm looking orthogonally at the section cut, right? And let's save out this scene. We have many scenes saved in this model. Well, I thought we did. No, maybe I did that on another one. Let's save this in this one. Yeah. Rename it. Section long 1. So I'm looking at floor level 1 orthogonally and obliquely at floor level 2, meaning I'm at an angle to it, or this line is not quite perpendicular to my point of view. Any case, the problem is the same. I need 9 stair treads whose riser height is 6 and whose depth is 14 inches. So let's just create one. So it's drawing right now perpendicular. It's drawing orthogonal to north and green and red axis. So let's draw a tread that is, let's just call it 8 feet, comma, 1 foot 4. I think I can do that. Okay, so what have I drawn? A rectangle 8 feet by 1 foot 4. We need to give it a height of 6 inches, so let's just extrude that. Let's get this out of the way, we don't need it quite yet. To 6 inches. Triple click it and make it a component. Shortcut is the letter G. Stair tread. Monumental. Because that's the that identifies it as that the monumental stair between the two levels. Monumental just means it's wider. Means it's wider than 8 feet, and you need railing in the middle. I could later modify the alignment. All I'm doing right now is creating provisionally a set of these. I'm using the Move Copy tool. So if I select that endpoint and make a copy and snap to there, and I make 8x of these, 8 times those, I'll have my 9 treads. It's just drawing right through whatever geometry is here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is buried in there, 9 is in there. If I turn on my X-ray faces, I can see all that, right? Go to the outliner. If I want to select these stair treads, I can go to my outliner. I'm going to add the outliner to my tray. Tools, default tray, check out outliner. That's to list all these components. So now I got all my stair treads can be selected here. I'm just holding down the control key. I could have done this graphically, but it's a really good idea to learn the outliner. Now I'm going to make this a group. All right. So now I can pull it around wherever I need it. Let's select it by some endpoint and drag it over to an edge. So now when I go to my section, which will just align to the section view that I already created, which is in my scenes, the only drawing I have so far, I'm looking at what that stair ought to be. Now the stair isn't correctly aligned, nor is it the correct depth. Alright, what have I done so far? I've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these. The last of which is coincident with the floor. but it's not the correct length yet. We could look at our CAD drawing. And start AutoCAD. And we're going to try to open a drawing that shows that stair location in plan. File, open, drawing, and I've made some additional drawings because the drawings that NISAT has had for this building are incorrect significantly for the upper levels, but there are parts of those drawings we can use. I'm opening this derived drawing, which seem to have the location of that stair. Now, I could also place this and align it with the AutoCAD underlay that I have in the SketchUp drawing. I don't think I've done that yet, but let's go back to SketchUp and see. I'm going to go to a top view, plan view, zoom to the extent, change my camera. What is parallel projection? There's my top view. Don't want to see the section cut. X-ray, and let's turn on the visibility of the layer, CAD underlay. So I don't have the lines in that derived drawing. Let's see if I can bring it in to this sketch. So I'm going to turn off visibility of everything else I've modeled so far. So we have just the CAD drawing and our stair. Let's create a layer for the stair and hide it. Stairs, monumental. Put that group on that layer. Hide the visibility of that layer, and let's bring in that CAD underlay. Import. This is a derived drawing that I made. Import failed. Sometimes you have to save in an older version of AutoCAD. Let's see where we are here. Let's file, save as, drawing. AutoCAD 2004, and I will put a suffix V 2004, so that'll remind me that this is a 2004 AutoCAD format. Go to SketchUp. Import. And that worked. There's my derived drawing. It isn't aligned yet with the AutoCAD underlay that I have. So I'm going to start to identify parts of it that I can identify. So the endpoint of this elevator ought to align with the endpoint of that one, right? Because it's that part of the drawing. Now I have a point of reference from which to rotate this. I'm rotating there to that edge. So now the two drawings are in the same place. These are older drawings because you will remember when this was a bookstore, there were these very, very long escalators between the space. So we're kind of halfway between, but we've now identified where the stairs are. And if I turn back on visibility of monumental stair, right. That's where I've drawn them, and this is where they need to be. So let's start by very simply moving from an endpoint. I'm just going to, whoops, that isn't what I wanted. You got to select this group and select move. So let's take an endpoint and align it to where that endpoint belongs. Now I'm going to rotate that. From this endpoint, that endpoint. Now it's parallel to that drawing. I've drawn the risers a little, the tread depth too deep, right? It looks like this is why it's important to use components, so that this group is composed of 9 instances of that one stair tread, which is a 6-inch riser height and a 1'2" tread depth, apparently too much. So let's measure what we actually have between I did 1'4". Stupid me. How can I fix that? I can double click this group, select any one of the elements, double click the element, which is a component. Right? Let's go to 3D view. And what I need to do is take 2 inches from it. So, what would be the easiest way to do it? Let's select this face and move it 2 inches along the red axis. That should give us the correct tread depth. Right click, close component. Okay? So what's wrong here, however? Even though the tread is the correct length, now all the instances thereof are too far apart. They're each of the 2 inches. Well, the easiest thing to do here is going to be to simply rearray the original instance of the component. So I'm going to delete those from the group. Select that component and do the same thing I did before. Copy it from that endpoint to there, 8x. So 8 instances of it makes it a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now I can close that group. Let's go to the top. Well, alright, let's stay in this view for now, right? So we have the stair. The stair tread array is correctly drawn. If I pull it from that endpoint to and snap to where it occurs there, I think we already aligned it. Let's go to a top view. The stair is already correctly aligned, right? All that's left to do here is to take the individual stair tread component and make it the correct length. Let's take the tape measure tool and measure from that endpoint to there, 21 feet 4 inches. So I need to add, double click the group, double click the tread, I need to select please don't crash on me. Let's close the component. Let's turn off X-ray mode so we can see what we're doing. Double click the group, select the component, double click the component, select that face, and I have to drag that end now from that endpoint to where it intersects there. Notice the distance in the value control box is 13.4 plus 8 feet. That gives us the 21.4 that we need. Now the stair is correctly modeled. Right click, close that component, right? And right click and close that group. there's several things I want to do that I haven't yet done. When we import AutoCAD, it imports all the layers that go with it, and I didn't collapse all those layers before. I normally do that upon importing the drawing, but I'm going to make a second layer, AutoCAD underlay 2, and take this component that I just selected and put it on that layer. So now I can turn those layers off at will. More importantly, I have the stair where it belongs, and the layers that I want to turn on are the floor levels. There's the old, the new floor 1. That's where that belongs, and then the floor in the old level. Okay, so why did my stairs disappear? Because they're buried. We don't have an opening for that stair. If I turn X-ray mode on, we see that stair is underneath the second floor level. All we need to do now is modify this group to create an opening for that stair. So how do we do that? Easiest way is going to be to draw a rectangle around it and pull it out of that. So let's go to a top view. So somehow we've got to draw a shape on this surface see the problem with X-ray mode is it's going to snap to the 3D geometry, so we're actually not drawing on the face. So we'll have to do something else. We will have to align a couple of guides. Let's hold down the shift key and see that we do that. And now from this guide back this way, hold the shift key, snap to that point. Let's see now if we can well, first off, let's make sure those guides are sitting on that slab, and they appear to. I now need guides from either edge. Hopefully this edge is perpendicular to these lines. So let's So I'm holding down the shift key and I'm trying to snap to where those lines intersect. I think I've done that, so now I'm going to simply draw from this guide to that point. No, I didn't get it there. I think we have enough to draw this. So if I use my line tool, there's the intersection of that, and in this direction, I know that distance to be 21 feet 8 inches. Is that correct? 21 feet 8, and then parallel to this, and I need an intersection. I didn't quite make it to that point, so let's just draw this and then we can complete it. Along this line, 21 feet 8. This is much harder than it needed to be if I had done this in advance. Anyway, endpoint. Endpoint. Do I have a rectangle there? I should. And I'm still inside the group, so now what I want to do is push that to the face to create that opening. Okay, we also need to push out whatever remains here, but we can do that pretty easily. I just sort of moving around to this view. Selecting that face and pushing to the outside edge. Then we can just erase the lines that make that up. Now we have the opening for the stair. I'm going to right click, close the group. And what's left to do now is to negotiate the end point, you know, where that floor ends. Clearly it has to end at the base of the stair, so we're going to have to modify the shape of that level 1 floor. This has gone on. Let's look at top view. I guess we might as well finish this. So the distance from that endpoint is about 5 feet 2. I could simply create a slab there, which would not be terrible. If I turned off the old floor level let's see, we could modify this. No, let's just close this group. So if I were to draw a rectangle, it went from there to that endpoint, perpendicular, stop there, should be in this direction, will be 21.8, right? 21 foot 8. And then back to that point. Extrude that downwards 12 inches. Let's just call that a landing. 1, 2, triple click. Make it a group. Create a we could add it to the monumental stair or whatever, or add it to the level 1 floor. Why don't we do that? We'll put it on floor new level 1. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's turn off the other stuff so we can illustrate that. Turn off my monumental stair. Turn off that AutoCAD underlay. Turn off the second AutoCAD underlay. So without anything selected, you can see that I've created simply an extension to floor level 1. I push-pulled it downward. I should have push-pulled it upward. I can very simply go into component attributes for this, and if I add a z coordinate, we see it's minus 12. I can make z now 0 for that. Now it is exactly where it belongs. Since this has lasted almost 45 minutes, we might as well sort of, summarize where we are. So all of this is now on floor level 1 new. It's all part of the same system. I'm going to get rid of these AutoCAD layers. Move them to the default layer 0. So we're just left with these layers also that we didn't need. So there's my monumental stair. Okay, you see what the problem is. These guys are at position 0. Let's see where level the new floor is. floor level. New, the old floor. Okay, so the old floor. It's just the stair that needs to move up. We could add a Z position for this group. We made it a 6-inch tread, so we need to raise it 6 inches. 12 inches, sorry. Because the top tread is coincident with the floor. Before anything happens, I should have saved this. Let's save as lesson 6. School, let's call this stairs. So at this point, all that's left to do is to decide how to reconcile that floor elevation, this floor elevation, and sort of the the gap between them. If I look at pictures, for evidence of what should we do there. Well, it looks like there's a column somewhere in the middle of that stair. Let's see what happens if we turn back on our column there. Photo. There's a massive column in the middle of that stair. Alright, let's see if we missed it on the CAD drawing. Let's first save out another scene because these will be useful to come back to. New style. Slabs and stair ISO X-ray. Save the SketchUp file. I don't know why I'm missing a column in the center there. Let's go to the top view. It's another deficiency in the drawing. I mean, you're at the mercy sometimes of whatever drawing you are given. It doesn't look like we're quite square to that floor, so we'll have to negotiate that, but we can fill that in with a wall or something. Is it possible that the stair The CAD drawing doesn't seem to show us. Assume the extent. What is that? Wall existing partition interior. Let's look at the picture again. Maybe it's not a column. Well, it is a pretty massive element in the center of things there, so we'll have to decide how we're going to deal with that. Meanwhile, 51 minutes for this lesson. The good news is, at this point, if I turn back on all the rest of our layers, visibility, all the rest of our layers, there's a Haley's schematic design, one draft of the schematic design. So you can see, you can take your drawing, put it in place there, and see in 3D how your idea is fitting over the space. You can also start to get a sense of why your circulation needs to be orthogonal to the exits, right? So if you walk into the building, through the building, around, you know, you're always navigating with respect to the structure within. We'll stop there. 53 minutes is long enough. That's the end of lesson 6 of Stairs. Let's change from X-ray mode and just turn off that underlay that we have there. And this is what we have so far for this model.